That yesterday for NC State was awful. As great as it was for North Carolina, it was equally as bad for NC State. That was atrocious if you're NC State. They look lost. Felt like Keatts was late first half, was checked out.
The whole team. The body language of the whole team just looked awful.
It was bad. That's what happens when you get stomped. You go into your rival's building and you get stomped. Yeah, you're going to have that kind of body language. And it's been a rough go in 2025 for NC State. Rough go. And Kevin Keatts on the Wolfpack Sports Network with Matt Chasnow and Tony Haynes talked about what helped UNC get off to such a strong start early and what were his impressions of the game.
We got off to a terrible start, and I thought, which really bothers me is that we got beat to a lot of 50-50 balls. We gave up second and third opportunities. We gave up 7 of their threes in the first half. If you look at the second half, we battled, we fought. But on the road in the ACC, you can't dig a big hole and expect to come back to win the game. And, I thought the game started off, went back and forth. We turned the ball over too much in the first half. We gave up threes, we gave up transition. And once you dig yourself in a hole, our guys fought in the second half, but we had such a huge deficit and a big mountain to climb.
Yeah, they built an early deficit, like I mentioned when talking about North Carolina. The game was 6-6. Both teams kind of traded buckets a little bit early on. And then before you know it, it's 46-18 North Carolina and deer in the headlights for NC State. And really, it's the same stuff. It's the same stuff. Especially on offense. I feel like their offense hasn't really evolved at much this season at all. Let's bring the ball up, maybe run this high screen, couple guys go down in the corners, and if nothing's there, Marcus Hill, tries to drive it and take it, or we get some crazy outside shot that really isn't of a high percentage look. It's the same thing, and they keep repeating the same mistakes in games. I mentioned about how North Carolina ran their press. They did it against Syracuse. They did it yesterday. They will make a free throw. Oftentimes they're going into this 1-2-1-1 press. And NC State kept repeating the same mistakes over and over again when UNC got in their press. They would inbound the ball into the corner, which is the worst place you can inbound the ball when another team is pressing. It's the worst place to do it.
The corner
because
coffin.
You have the coffin corners. Jay Billis said there's no place to go. You can't dribble out of it because you're either going to run into a defender, run into another defender, or you're going to run out of bounds on the sideline, or you're going to run out of bounds on the baseline. There's nowhere to go with it. And then if you try and throw some skip pass, or you got hands all up in your face, it's a low percentage play, and sure enough, NC State fed right into it. They made a mistake the first time, then they made it again, and it's like, okay, maybe they'll adjust. Don't throw the ball there. They did it again, they did it again, they did it again. It's the same thing. We talked about the press earlier this week and how it was something that North Carolina did, and yesterday we saw it. And yesterday, Graham, on the show, to start things off on the show yesterday, I said there's one thing I want to see from both UNC and NC State, and one thing I don't want to hear post-game from UNC or NC State. The thing from UNC I didn't want to hear post-game was any questions about the team's fight. 0 questions about that after yesterday. And the one thing I said for NC State that I didn't want to hear post-game was about not following a scouting report. And then sure enough, Jaden Taylor, one of their fifth-year seniors, said this post-game.
Just scouting mistakes, mental mistakes, breakdowns. They just led to easy baskets for UNC.
Scouting mistakes. Scouting report. We have heard that so many times. It's game, 26, 27 in the season, and you're still hearing the same thing? That's from the top. That's 100% from the top. Either you're not trying to ask your players to do too much. That's got to be frustrating as heck if you're an NC State fan and that's what you hear. Which leads me to my next point. As I said, this season's it's a lost cause. It's a lost cause. There's nothing going for that team. And while I understand there's a mathematical chance of making the ACC tournament, but let's be honest, is there anything about what they've done over the last 15 games that says, yeah, go ahead, I'll wait. I'd love to hear it because I don't see it. I hate being this super negative, but golly, you expected more from this team this year. Again, it wasn't expecting a Final Four run like they did last year. I understand that was a high-end moment. But at least at minimum, they would have been kind of what they were last year, right? At minimum. This is worse than last year. And last year really wasn't that good until you got to Washington, D.C. Maybe I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong and NC State shows out these last few games and gets hot for the last few and they actually do make it to Charlotte for the ACC tournament, I'll say I was wrong. But again, what about this team says you can do it? And I'll say this. We follow the discourse online. Actually, before I get into that, Dontre Styles, one of their seniors, says the team fully understands what's at stake these last 5 games.
It's tough. Just how this game went and how they came out just hit us and we didn't respond at all, and it was kind of over after that. And we can't afford to do that at all at this point in the season. And we know these next 5 games we got to get wins. So.
Got to get wins. Just get one. I know you had the win against Boston College, but just focus on getting one. Just focus on getting one if you're NC State. I saw someone post this yesterday. I can't remember who it was, and my apologies on this. And I was just kind of, I always should like to try and get a finger on the pulse of the fans. I like to go to games and just listen. Just listen to people. I know sometimes I'll sit with the media, or sometimes I'll just sit in the stands and just listen to what people are saying and try and follow online just to get an idea. And the comments that we have in our comment section on YouTube, by the way, 999 The Fans YouTube page. Make sure you subscribe there. I saw someone post this. I thought it was a great point. That even with the Final Four run that NC State had last season, your feelings about Kevin Keatts haven't changed. And that's telling. Is that the questions about the head coach that we're having, that people are having now and have been having for the last few weeks, that was all the same a year ago. All of it was the same a year ago. It's no different. Even with the Final Four run, it's no different. No different at all. That's a major concern if you're NC State. They got Wake Forest on Saturday coming in. I don't have any answers. We try and be solutions guys on this show. I mean, other than keep trying to play the young guys, but that's it.
Even then, Trey Parker, I should say, had his true freshman game last night.
He looked like a freshman yesterday, flustered, but I also feel like he never really had a chance early on to even get into any sort of rhythm. He's coming in there, they're down by a whole lot. Well, start chucking threes.
Eventually one has to go in, I guess, but don't know if that's a recipe for success.
It wasn't. I can tell you that. Not after that game yesterday. And if someone wants to try and paint the picture of, well, in the second half, you outscored them, well, great. It was not a pretty day yesterday for NC State.